We're going to get started here, about 3 apps in a matter of 75 minutes and leave room for Q&A. So we're going to be going fast. I will slow down at the important parts to show you certain functions that I think are key for you guys to retain. But if you have any question with regards to the content that I'm presenting, feel free to shout. It's kind of hard for me to look around and see when hands are raised or not. So if you have a question, feel free to stop me. Like, slow down, Hiram. I am Cuban originally, so I do tend to run at a faster, pretty fast pace. A lot of my friends tell me, Hiram, you got to speak slower. Well, let's get started here. I was saying at the beginning that the entire deck is available already to download at that GitHub URL. And I'm giving a second session tomorrow at 8 a.m. So that presentation is around machine learning services inside of SQL Server, doing real-time sentiment analysis. And it's available at the same GitHub URL. My name is Hiram, and really grateful to have you guys here join me today. It is my first time speaking at Summit, so feel free to keep me honest. This is my third past Summit. I'm very excited to be sharing this content with you guys. If you have a moment, if you could silence your phone. If not, just set it to like Metallica. It's all cool. But I think it would be great for everyone if you silence your phones. Definitely explore everything that PAS has to offer. I asked a few questions earlier if there were first-timers here. Quite a few folks raised their hands. PAS has an unlimited amount of free content available to you. If you haven't attended a SQL Saturday, I encourage you to do that. I've spoken at many SQL Saturdays, and I want to continue that trend as well. But if you don't have the opportunity to take time away your weekend to attend a SQL Saturday, even though it's free, you can join a virtual user group in your own language. There's virtual user groups in French, Spanish, English, and you can take an hour during lunch to watch speakers like myself share content over the web as a webinar. Definitely take advantage of everything they have to offer. This is my blog. A lot of the information that I'm going to be speaking on will be posted there. So just wanted to give you guys this resource. The name DBA 2.0 came from a friend, and it just stuck. The blog is dba20.wordpress.com or fleitasarts.com. I will share that link after. I am raffling 2 swag bags that my company provided. So this is a bit.ly link that when you go to that site, you're going to land on my blog, and then it's going to ask you like a quick poll. And it's just my personal eval that helps me perfect this content. I don't share this information. I don't sell it. It's just going to ask you 3 simple questions, rated 1 through 5. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? If you want to participate in the raffle, just put in your name. You don't have to put in your email or anything like that. Just put in your name. I will bring this up later. And then 2 lucky winners will take the swag bags home that my office provided, and very grateful for them to support me being out here to share this content with you. And the swag is pretty awesome. I do gotta say that. It's very important that you fill out the PAS eval as well. The PAS eval might be a little more lengthy, I'll be honest with you. I typically take the time on the flight back home to fill out all the session evals of all the sessions that I attended. But if you do it while you're out here, you can even participate in a raffle that they'll be giving away at the exhibitor hall. And I very conveniently added the QR code that's posted outside on the board for you. Again, my name is Hiram Fleitas. I do some cool stuff for universal property and casualty. Really happy to work with this company. They're very supportive, like I mentioned, for me to be out here and sharing this content with you guys. First and foremost, I'm a father of 2. We have a 4-year-old, Christina and I. My wife is right up here, so feel free to ask her any questions. Yeah, they're great. So I've been a developer since quite at an early age. I wrote my first app, I was 13 years old. It was a calculator, didn't do much. But once I put my hands on the keyboard for the first time, it was like godsend. I loved it. Been working with SQL Server for quite a while, and I started a company called Fleitas back in '08. I'm also a staff officer for the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. If you have any questions around that, feel free to reach out to me at any of these contacts. I definitely use Twitter, love using GitHub, or feel free to shoot me an email or a message on LinkedIn, and my blog URL is right there as well. I have some certifications that I'm pretty proud of there. Microsoft has, I believe it's on the second floor, that you can preview some of the content as well, if you're looking to pursue some certs. Here's some information with regards to Universal Insurance Holdings. This is the parent company of Universal Property. When I started with them, believe we're in 15 states now. The company has grown. Most of our policyholders are in the state of Florida. So hurricane season is definitely very busy time for us, for our policyholders. And we're always looking to hire more technical talent. The work that we're doing at the company it just continues to stack on more and more. And you're going to perhaps democratize some of these solutions with PowerApps and Power BI. And it's like giving them the candy, and then you can't take it away. They just want more and more and more. So it's definitely very busy for us back at the office. So this is the agenda that we're going to cover. Like I mentioned, we're going to be going pretty fast. This is kind of like the list of the demos. After this slide, I believe it's just straight into the demos. I'm going to be building the schema first with regards to my apps. The thought process there is that we typically are like, where do we start? Do we start with the UI? Do we start with the database? So typically the thought process for me was, what is the business problem? And then how am I solving that business problem now? And then what solution can I provide to help make it a better solution? So I went about solving this problem by writing a store procedure and then putting a Power App in front of it. So I'm going to start by giving you somewhat of a T-SQL schema that we can create a fictitious app over. Then we're going to be talking about flow. It's now Power Automation, I believe it was Power Automate. It was just relabeled at Ignite, so all of the content on the deck is around Microsoft Flow. It's labeled Microsoft Flow, but Microsoft has now relabeled the product to be a little more consistent with the Power Platform naming convention. We'll also cover the data gateway, some information around Cortana and how to use Cortana to speak to your device, to your laptop, so that you can just pop up and bring up a report. We'll also cover, if we have time, Siri as well, the entire method of publishing your apps and how the security governance looks around that sharing step. We'll talk about AI Builder, how to do form processing, that it can OCR a document like an invoice through your Power App. Role-level security. This is a common topic that comes on with regards to certain folks in different departments that you might want to give them access to only their regional data, per se. Like if you have a regional sales rep in one county versus another county, how they can all consume the same report, but only see the data that is secured to their department. We're going to also cover approvals within Microsoft Flow. So this is a step that's, let's say, an activity events, and you need a clean tail log of who approved it, what was the comments around the approval, and how to automate that solution. This is not meant to replace perhaps some sort of workflow that you have now, but it's something to supplement on top of the Power App platform. And then there's a pretty cool app that I created not too long ago that shows you the telemetry information of the International Space Station. And this is quite useful that you could call a web API from your Power App and just render a map. So I'm going to show you guys that information as well. And then we'll have all the resources, and we'll do the raffle at the end. This is a bit of an intro. I know some of the folks are already familiar with Power BI, Flow, and PowerApps. If you haven't seen the three of them, this is how it looks on a mobile phone, on a tablet. You can run it anywhere. So what is the Power Platform, right? Microsoft uses this slide quite often to talk about the three musketeers, in a way. The Power BI application lets you do business analytics. PowerApps application development in the sense of whether it be a portal, as a website, or a mobile app, or an application that you want to run it on a workstation. To create literally pixel-perfect applications, customized to your heart's content. And then Flow, I call it like the secret sauce. It just makes everything integrated together, and you can do automation with Flow itself. And then it connects to quite a vast variety of data connectors and the common data service that Microsoft offers with this platform. The connectors that I'm going to be focused on is particularly SQL Server. It is PaaS, so I'm a SQL guy, so I work with SQL Server quite often. And that connector was specifically the game-changing thing for me that brought me to use this platform. This is a screenshot of Power BI, the dashboard there. You're able to obviously run real-time analytics with dashboards, as you can see there. The report is refreshing in real time. With regards to Cortana, this is how it looks. Now, there will be a few things that I'm going to talk around this area once we get to that area. But there are keyboard shortcuts that you could hit, and Cortana will ask you a question as far as what is it that you like to do. And you can speak to Cortana and call an utterance, per se, and that might be the name of your report. And she'll just show you that widget right on the start menu. No need to open a website. It doesn't launch an application. It just shows you the widget right in the application. It's a pretty cool feature. All right, so these are some old numbers with regards to usage of this platform. What I want you to get away from this slide is we always start to use these new products, and it's kind of hard to find a workforce or help on how to start using them. So what I like about this slide is that there is such a wide community that it's already using this platform, that if you ever need help or if you need a resource to join your team, you know there's millions of people out there that might have some experience with it that can help you out. We talked about PowerApps building pixel-perfect applications. The premise is that there's no limits as far as what you can do. And this is an example of an app that runs on any device. This is another example of an app. Think of this like a hotel or a room auditing after it's been checked out. And the cool thing is you could see that there's a signature pad right there at the bottom. So as far as adoption goes, sometimes we wonder, how is this secure? What companies are using? This is an example of a company in the airline industry, like Virgin Atlantic, and they have many, many PowerApps already deployed in their fleet that are used for vessel safety examination. So if you think as far as compliance, organizations such as that large in such a demanding industry that's already using this technology. They have a great use case article on their website, on the Microsoft website for PowerApps, and it goes through the video of the person at the organization that built it. So how did this come about? The premise here is, traditionally we start with this platform developing Power BI reports, right? And then from there, we consume a report and try to make a business decision. So the premise here is how can we speed up that process to the turnaround time on how we jump between applications inside of our company, and how PowerApps lends itself really well to take an action, a determination, right from your report and right back to your database or to your CRM solution if you want. In Flow, we talked about automation. This is what Flow looks like. If you're familiar with SSIS, Logic Apps, very similar. It's an example. And you can embed flows. You could create templates and just publish them to SharePoint that employees in your organization can reuse. Perhaps something around send me an email when someone modifies a OneDrive file. So these embedded flows are quite useful. And you can consume them from Excel, from a website. We talked about enterprise readiness, governance with regards to compliance. These are some numbers that the product team has provided. You can see it's something that's been proven. And I kind of hardened this topic a little bit because a lot of this technology, when I implement it back at work, the question is always like, is it safe? Has this been vetted? So this slide sort of might help you answer those questions as well. We have some information with regards to market platform reports here. This is the latest Gartner, and something has happened with this report where they've changed the labeling of this report to multi-experience. So the premise now is around wearables as well, and AI embedded. So Microsoft has become a challenger in this platform because the offering of Visual Studio and Xamarin Forms on top of all of this, so there's a little bit of a disconnect in the ecosystem, so Gartner doesn't see them as there's a single name or a single product that someone can go to. There's still a diverse multiple solutions of the APIs that they offer. But you could see the other competitors there as well. OutSystem has consistently been a leader in this field. And clearly, everyone loves Power BI, so they're clearly crushing it right there at the top right. All right, let's get into the demo of the notebook. So if you haven't, I'm pretty sure, I believe you guys have seen Azure Data Studio all week so far. Has anyone not seen Azure Data Studio before? Okay, no hands, great. So we're all familiar with Azure Data Studio. You can write Markdown, you can write code cells. So here I'm going to create a database at the beginning. And I mentioned this in the beginning, but all my demos are scripted into the deck, so nothing's going to go wrong. And when you guys download the deck, you're going to download the demo with it as well. So you get all of that right out of the gate. I'm going to create 2 tables. If you do need me to zoom in, just feel free to ask. I tried to make this a little bit larger so it's easier to read. So I'm just dropping the schema and rebuilding it on the fly so I can show it to you from scratch. Then I have some notes here with regards to policy information and insurance. So the premise behind the schema is that there are typical tables. There's customer data, there's customer accounts, there's relationships between them, there's data types like you normally use, there's indexing. Then I'm going to create a lead table. So perhaps my app is going to start writing leads per se so that we could sell them theoretically insurance policies. And that lead is going to have certain demographic information. Then the lead will be assigned a ticket. The ticket goes to dispatch queue, per se. And someone will follow up with that person. So that creates the schema of the tables themselves. Then I create a number of store procedures. Well, I'm going to populate the tables first. There's some sample data here. It's just basically a name, an email address, a home address, and then some standard activity information as far as who wrote the data. And I create a ticket as well. And then I preview that the data, the sample that I just scripted on the previous screen, got right into the table. And this is all the other information with regards to the leads and the tickets. And I create a store procedure called check lead. So I need the store procedure because I want the application to call, like a traditional CRM product that you run on-prem now, to call a store procedure to do an action. So I'm going to actually write a number of actions here, which are in essence just store procedures that check if there's a lead already, so I don't create a duplicate entry, that insert a lead, that delete the lead, or may link it, which was the specific problem that I was trying to solve here. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So the procedure basically is an insert operation, as you can see here. And then it returns the data that it inserted. So I run 3 execute commands right after to make sure that the store procedure ran with some sample data. This ends the link. I run that store procedure as well to see if I can link a lead via ID, an email address, and a name. To delete the lead, this is the store procedure that deletes the information from the ticket table and the lead table. and then it returns that the data got deleted or whether it failed. Right. This one is to insert the lead. Perhaps there's a new lead that's being entered into the system, and that's the data that gets returned when I execute it right there. Then I create an authentication account that I want my application to use, like a service account. And give it data writer and data reader, and grant it execute permissions to that database so it can call the store procedures. Pretty straightforward, right? If you do have a question, feel free to ask. It's kind of difficult for me to scan the room and see a wide area here when folks raise their hands. So now let's get into the Power App itself that I've built the schema. So when you're going to get started to this, you're going to go to this website right here at the top, powerapps.microsoft.com, or it's now make.powerapps.com. It used to be studio.powerapps.com, but they all land on the same site. So think of this like the Visual Studio of building your app, but it's all through a web browser. So now the premise there is you may have a new developer come on board or someone like that. The level of entry that we typically take to set up that workstation with all the tools that they need, that's no longer the case here. You can just go to a website. Bam, they can start writing an app for you on day one. So you sign in there at the top. I'm going to sign in with my personal account there that I have an Office 365 subscription with, put in my password. I'm going to create a blank app, and this is a Canvas app. So this is the first app that we're going to create now. Give it the name of the app. It's leads. It's going to be a phone app. Click Create. Skip to this introductory section. If you want to follow that introduction, it's going to walk you through some tutorial guidance that's quite useful if it's your first time. So then I'm here. I have a completely blank canvas. Now, we can build anything at this point. So the premise of having those store procedures and those data entry fields is I knew I needed to collect the name. I knew I needed to collect the email address and the home address. Those were the only fields that I needed to build. So I'm building a very simple form, and I'm thinking that I'm going to put to geocode that address that the person gives me just to make sure that I have the correct home address, because this is quite a challenge sometimes. So I'm going to render a map, and maybe the person that is interacting with this customer may say, okay, well, is this like your home? They can show it to them right from the app. So I'm going to insert an image, do a couple of things here. So the premise here is when someone logs in, I want to show them that I authenticated them. So I'm going to perhaps throw some branding as well, so they could see the company logo. They could see perhaps if they have one uploaded, like their Office 365 picture. Or you could just display the name, if you want to, of the person that logged in for the account. So in order to do this, I'm going to add the Office 365 connector, and then I'm going to add the employee's photo. So with these functions here on the right, I'm going to modify the radius of the image so I can make a perfect circle instead of having to display a square. And some cool features there that help you with your design. So the trick to that is image, the name of the object, dot height. And you do that for all four corners, and you're going to get a perfect circle. Resize it. Then I can save the app by clicking on File, just save it. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit now. I'm going through, just save the app at the beginning so I can get used to saving it as I continue to build my app. So I'm going to add an image. This is a logo. Resize it. Make sure that I position in the trick that I use for that is math. I measure the pixels of the screen, and then I see a gentleman shaking his head. He's like, yeah, we do that too. So type in a text, the name of the object that I want to display there for that text box. So let's get a little bit faster now. Copy paste. Now I got 3 text boxes. Relabel them to name, email, and address. Then I'm going to add a connector here for my map. So I'm going to search for Bing. I'm going to write the connector for Bing Maps. You could definitely use Google Maps or another data source here. But I use this one because they have a great developer API that you can get a key quite quickly. So then I'm going to go to the website for Bing, register for the API. It's just click a basic key, sign in, quite a number of clicks there. I'm going to use my personal account, my Hotmail address, but I could have used my office email address as well. And then eventually I get to the screen where the key is at, and it's a matter of just copying. If you hit show key, it'll show you the key, but you could copy the key. You could also secure it. Like you want to grant access to this key from a certain IP or from a certain app. So this is a great offering here, or like a domain of where it's coming from. Right, so we copy that key, we paste it. Now we add another image, and I'm going to start to write the function that calls the map and renders the address. So the idea here is you have a number of options with regards to that visual of the map, whether it be dark or a street. I'm going to use aerial with labels, and the default zoom, I'm going to set it to 11. But we're going to customize this a little bit. In the browser, immediately it prompts me, asking me, hey, do you want to allow this site to use your location? Because I typed in location.latitude and location.longitude. So at that point, the API tried to connect to get the telemetry information of where my internet is coming out from, so that it renders a map. So this, immediately you'll get the location, the map renderer. Then you can resize it. Going to change that formula to an if statement, because if the text box at the beginning it's just address, I want to display the map of where the device is located instead of a blank image. And if the person types in an address, then I want to render the map with that location information. So that's an if statement there, and then I modify it to have like a custom pinpoint of a house or another icon within my app. And there's the details with regards to how I'm doing it. Okay, then I add another text box at the bottom for lead, and this is what I'm going to use to do the linking. The image on the top, here on the top right, the logo, I use the function called launch. So if someone presses on the logo, I take them into the browser, and now they left the Power App, and they ended up on our homepage. You can do the same thing for the profile image. And this is on the select event. And this is a drop-down here that you have a multitude of methods there. All right, we're going to add a couple of buttons now. Very similar to the button. You can customize it when someone clicks on it. I like to have icons with my buttons. So unfortunately, these things are not together. You have to add the icon separately. So I go ahead and customize the icon as well, and then I group them. So that button feels, and I can configure certain functions to both objects at the same time, both the icon and the button itself. We fast forward that, and now copy paste, literally, and I have 4 buttons. Then I change the icons so they're a little bit more suitable for the action of that button. You could see here the drop-down shows you how to modify the icon. So I change to cancel, checkbox for check, so on. If you don't have enough icons, you can always go to this website and download one. This list has hundreds of icons here, and you could even upload your own. And so then I changed my mind with the UI, and I decided I wanted circles for my buttons instead of rectangles. So you could definitely do that using the trick that I showed you guys before. So now we have 4 circles as our buttons. Then I'm going to build a pop-up screen. So pop-up screen traditionally is like we refer to that as a modal screen, where you can have a gradient, and I'm not leaving this screen inside of the Power App itself. I'm not having to build a totally separate screen. I'm just throwing a rectangle on top of this frame, and I'm going to modify the gradient of that rectangle, and then have the output of the actions render inside of that modal screen. Is that okay with everyone? Yeah? All right, cool. So we throw that rectangle, modify the properties of it so that it's white, and I added a button in front of that. I grouped all of the objects inside of that modal screen, as you can see here on the left, and I set the visible property to a variable. And that variable by default is going to be set to false, so then you're not going to see the modal screen ever unless you click on a button, and then I change on the action the variable to true, and then the modal screen will pop up. And pretty straightforward. Now we're going to program the buttons themselves to call our flows, and the flows are going to call the store procedures. So the method of setting or controlling the variable of the output is going to be update context. So this is the variable of that button, and then this is the flow right there, and then these are all of the inputs that it's going to pass in. And then at the end, it's going to set the modal screen to true, so that the modal screen pops up. And I do the same thing for all the other buttons with their corresponding inputs. And now we're at the third demo. We got 10 of these to cover, so I do think I need to speed it up. All right, so building the flow, set up a gateway here to connect to my on-premise SQL Server. And then I type in the store procedure. This authentication, it only has permissions to these objects. These are all the inputs that automatically IntelliSense detected what the store procedure expects. And then I ask in PowerApp all of the input fields, which are the text boxes. And I create an expression here so that I can call the store procedure. So this is a key item. This is not something simple that it shows up when you click on Ask in PowerApps. So you do have to type this expression by clicking on expression on the right. And it will treat it as dynamic content. Now that there's a version 2, it's a premium connector. This is the label for that. You could peek the code to see the actual JSON inside of this container. And then I'm going to initialize the variable here with the output of the store procedure and pass it back to PowerApps. You could test the flow, go through that entire CDCI, and it'll show you the history right there at the bottom. You could even create alerts that if someone modifies a flow on you, to send you a notification as well. So then I have that flow inside of the app. I copy-paste 4 other flows to do the different calls to the store procedures. And now my buttons are set. So I can run the app right here. Think of this play button like it's launching Visual Studio and pressing F5, and it'll run the debugger. But it happens right on the website. And now I'm interacting with the app already and testing it. So the modal screen pops up when I click on an action, and I provided an input. I'm just displaying the JSON output of that variable, not creating any fancy visuals at this point inside of the modal screen. So I tested, go through that utterance. Again, this entire deck, all the demos are scripted in here, so you guys can follow literally step by step. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And you can look at all of the activity to help you debug your flow. And then this is kind of like the Power BI, section of this talk. So the activity information that all of these applications are using, you automatically get a Power BI dashboard out of it. So when I clicked on the ellipsis here, I backtracked a little bit because I went too fast. I clicked on analytics, and it immediately gives you activity information. Like imagine trying to build an app, and then you have to write a completely other WCF service to do logging for you. So this is no longer the case. My opinion, this is worth its weight in gold. So there wasn't a lot of activity there because that was at the beginning that I was testing the analytics. And PowerApps has the same analytics, Power BI visual that you get out of the box. All right, so let's talk about the data gateway. So the premise here is that I had a SQL Server on-premise. Like it wasn't on cloud. So I needed to deploy the data gateway, and the data gateway is going to allow PowerApps to communicate over the internet, encrypted fully end-to-end, by running a client inside of my network close to some proximity where that SQL Server sits. And now this app over the internet, over cellular network, it's going to be able to talk to my SQL Servers on-prem, thanks to this data gateway. And this software is completely free as well. And like I mentioned, it's encrypted end-to-end. You can download the data gateway right from the Power BI app, Power BI website, sorry, and then install it. And once you have it installed, in this case, it's installed on my laptop. I don't recommend that you deploy one of these per app. You typically need just one in your environment. Don't deploy this on the same machine that you have SQL Server, but put it perhaps maybe like on a VM close to the same subnet where that SQL Server sits. And if you're just trying it out, put it on your laptop and target maybe your local instance on your laptop or a dev box as your connector. You can configure the data gateway. It authenticates with the same Office 365 account that you built the Power App with. And then it shows you that it's ready. You can consume the data gateway for Power BI, for Microsoft Flow, and PowerApps and Logic apps. So, I kind of like timeout, Hiram. How did you install this? These are all the next clicks. It's pretty straightforward once you download it. You can go through that, and then it installs. You can also configure this is very important, you have a recovery key in case you need to migrate your gateway onto another machine. You can use this recovery key to reinstall it. If you forget this password, it's not saved anywhere. You literally have to remember this password. But if you forget it, you can just deploy a new gateway. And then you can have a cluster. It's possible also to have high availability, so it's not just running on one device and you only have one gateway. You could have a cluster of gateways. So you could restart the service or just go through computer management and you have the list of services and restart it. All right. In this folder here, once you install it, you do have all of the logging information for the gateway. Let's get into the Cortana part. Now, I might go a little faster on this section because, unfortunately, this feature was deprecated early in July. And when I spoke with the PM team about this feature, the story wasn't quite healthy, in my opinion. But I think it's still important that we advocate for this technology because there's tremendous value. And they're looking to extend the offering now to perhaps something like Office 365 that was demoed at Ignite, how you can integrate Bing Search with SharePoint and all of your on-premise data. So you may see this come up again. Now, Cortana in the OS, it still works. That hasn't been deprecated. But the integration to the Power BI API, this technology runs on Azure Search and all of the cognitive speech recognition APIs. But in order to do it back then, in July, before it was deprecated, you would modify the data set and allow Cortana to access this. So Cortana didn't do this on its own to begin with. Then you could enable it or disable it for the entire tenant. So if you're an Office 365 admin, your IT systems administrators, they had access to control this as well. Then on this site, you could test that you could call a Power BI report by typing in an utterance. You could see there, as I was typing growth by, it automatically knew that I was leaning towards growth by country. So that utterance is actually coded into the Power BI report itself. And then it would show me the matches inside of the start menu. I do have the start menu at the top of my screen, so that's why the screenshot is at the top. The start menu typically is on the bottom left. Yes? It was deprecated in July. So not Cortana support itself, but the integration between Cortana on the workstation and the Power BI API. That integration is deprecated since July. So if you do try to build this today, your miles may widely vary. But like I mentioned, you may see a newer release come out pretty soon with regards to the integration with the Bing search. That uses the same technology. And unfortunately, this feature was impacted when they made enhancements to the Q&A functionality of Power BI and the Power BI service as well. So how do you call Cortana? You just hit literally Windows-C on your keyboard. You could configure that keyboard shortcut like Control-C for copy, or Windows-C is Cortana. Then she'll start listening, and you can ask a question, such as show growth by country. As you could see there, as I was speaking to the laptop, it was typing it out automatically for me. You could zoom in there. You could see that. So then it would show me the card. So this is a Cortana card that's configured for the visual. All right, so kind of back up a little bit. How did you do that to begin with? This is the utterance here at the bottom, where I told it that this card meant for Q&A growth by country. And then you would configure the page. Then on the workstation, you had to go through a number of things, so this was a little bit difficult to implement, but all the steps are there. So now we have Siri shortcuts. So this is quite useful, right? If you have an executive at your company, and they always consume perhaps the same report, and they have to launch it from their workstation, go to a website, or maybe open an app, they could literally just speak to Siri on their phone and have the shortcut. So you do need the Power BI app on the device installed, and then you configure a Siri shortcut by pressing on the ellipsis for the report and typing in what is it that you want to say, and Siri to pull it up for you. You could customize it just as well, growth by country, and then you do the Siri activity, and she will bring up the report. If it doesn't, you can call Hiram and be like, Hiram, Siri doesn't work. Help me out. So now that we have some sort of functionality, how do we publish and share this, right? And what is the security governance behind it? Well, when you finish building your app, you can edit the app, click on File at the top left, click Publish. You could edit the details as far as put branding behind it, and this is going to publish within your organization. This is not going to go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, and you don't have to go through any of that testing and documentation. This is all enterprise internally within your tenant. It doesn't leave any of that. It's not a public app, the point here that I'm trying to make. My app is going to be specific to my enterprise. There are ways to make it a public app if you need to. All right, so I change the icon, I put some description, I click on Publish this version, share this app. I'm going to share it with Christina. My wife is sitting right up here, and this is the user, Christina. So she's going to get access to all of these objects once I share it with them. So now I have that confirmation. It's like, hey, you're sharing this app with this user. You're giving them access to all of these connectors along with it. So that's great. I hit OK, and then I go to test the app. This is the home screen here. Going to open PowerApps. So on the device, you do need the PowerApp application itself. You download that from the App Store. It's available on iOS. And then I authenticate with my domain account. I sign in. And right there, I have the app called Leads. You can see it on the right. I can pin it to the home. And this step has changed since iOS 12 came out, or 13. I don't remember what version they're on already. But you can pin it to the home screen, and it'll look just like any other icon on your screen. So when I open the app, it immediately is going to ask me, hey, this app is trying to use your location. I give it access to do that. And then I have the app there on the right. If I modify the app, like if I change anything about it, how does that update feel to the user? Well, they just see that banner on the top that says, hey, a new version is available to you. So they don't have to sit and wait for the App Store to now distribute it to that device. They literally just press on that blue banner, it reloads instantly, and now they're consuming the new version. Can you force a certain version? You could. This is going to run the version that's published. So I think your question is around, maybe can you roll it back?
No. It just says an update's available. How do we force them to use the current version?
Well, it will prompt them, and it's not going to force them. It's not going to relaunch the app. But if they do perhaps press the home screen and close the app and then open it again, that will force the app to refresh. So if they don't press that banner, how would you force it? Perhaps you will write a custom function into your buttons that it forces the app to refresh if the version is different. So there are ways for you to get the version through the web URL of the app.
How do you roll it back if you have to?
Yeah, I'll show that in a minute. Great question. So it's quite simple. So here I go through the activity of the app. I make sure that it works, add some data. So the gentleman asks, how would you roll back the app? So here, when I click on the details of the app, I see all of the information around it. And these are all the versions. So if you want to roll it back, just click on the ellipsis right next to the version you want to go back to, and it'll ask you if you want to restore that one. You could see the one that's published as live. and then all the connections around it, all the flows around it, and the telemetry information like the log analytics activity of that app. And this is a Power BI dashboard that you get out of the box. I didn't build any of that. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I may have missed it. Where are we connected to the database that you created? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I might have gone a little too fast through it, but it was, I believe, demo 3.
Okay, all right.
So I will bring it up at the end if you want to look at it again. So this is the analytics activity. I think with regards to the question, it was like, where are we connecting to the SQL database? So the flow itself is doing that. And in Flow, I added a connector to SQL in the list of the chain of the activities. And that SQL connector is talking to my data gateway. And it's calling the SOAP procedures there. So I'll bring it up again.
Does it cache the information if you don't, like say you don't have connectivity at that moment? Does it cache the information and then?
It does cache certain information, but I wouldn't say that the output gets cached. So if your flow is invoked to return data, it will always do that attempt, that activity. And if it fails, you'll get an error around it.
Oh, okay, so it will fail.
Yeah, it will fail. But there are caching things that it causes certain nuances around this. So you have all your flows. This part is quite important. So a lot of times I get questions around, hey, who is publishing Power BI reports at our company? Where are they using them? What department are they from? You can get that audit log right from the Power BI admin portal. If you click on audit logs, if you have access to this, if you're an Office 365 admin of your organization, if not, you may have to ask your sysadmin to get to this audit log. And then in the audit log, you can literally just search with regards to PowerApps or Power BI reports, and you could see all of the telemetry activity of who's doing what, whether they edited the report or launched it, or launched an app, or a flow. This is all the telemetry activity with regards to flows. If they deleted an activity, if they caught a certain flow, the IP address that it came from, who did they authenticate as. Power BI as well, you have a number of filters here, and then details around it. And you could create a rule around here that whenever this sort of audit log entry comes up, to send you a notification. So I have one set up that in case someone modifies a flow inside of my organization, it'll send me an email. You don't have to create a separate flow for that. It's all built into the audit log. So then we get with regards to a little bit of compliance, right, and regulatory, all of this is also offered, but it's a little bit out of context for this talk. I just wanted to include it in the deck for you. But Microsoft has a compliance manager that can help you with some of these hurdles. And then how do you secure it all, right? So you have a multitude of apps, perhaps in the field. You could use Microsoft Intune to manage those devices as well. So let's look at forms in the AI Builder. So this is what the app looks like now. I changed the coloring, I changed some of the labels, and I added a specific button here on the top, on the bottom right called PDF. So that button is going to call AI Builder. And in order to do this, you do have to publish the app to a separate workspace, a workspace that's not just for yourself. It's a similar concept to the Power BI workspaces. And the reason for this is because they want you to build this on top of the CDS, but you don't have to. In my case, I'm showing you how to use AI Builder to write the data into SQL Server. I'm not writing anything to the CDS. I'm not using the CDS at all. So I press on Analyze here, and it prompts me. The device will prompt me for a picture, whether I'm doing this on a workstation. And this AI Builder is trained on invoices. So I have a sample invoice there. I put in the invoice, and the AI Builder automatically OCRs all of the field, like the dates. I collect all of that information, and when I press the plus button, it writes it to SQL. And just like the other store procedures that I showed at the beginning, this store procedure that inserts the fields that it detected inside of that invoice, I'm returning back to the app the balance due field, as you can see there at the bottom. And all of this code is available in the repo for you, as well as the entire app. It's already exported out, and you can import it into your tenant if you want to. I kind of go through the process of building that AI Builder, but we kind of short on time, so I'm going to speed up. Let's get into role-level security, right? So this functionality is inside of the Power BI report. You build a model, You can configure security on a specific role. Some people call it like role security, but it's really like row level security. So here's a simple dashboard where I have sales rep. And when Christina selects her filter, these are the numbers that she sees. So I have to click on Manage Roles. And I'm able to define a role here for each person in the organization, or perhaps each filter. Then I publish the app. I go into the data set, click on the ellipses, click on security, and then I assign an actual Office 365 account or a domain account to each role. You could see there that Christina got added to VP. Then I test the report inside of Power BI. And I'm going to pin each card or each visual to a dashboard. I create a new dashboard. This is what the dashboard looks like. And I can edit the workspace, assign Christina only member access. If you have a premium workspace, you want to give them viewer access. And it's at the individual level. You could see that in this case, it's a pro workspace. So I said members can only view content in Power BI. So this is important in order to get this to work. And then I build an app with regards to that dashboard. And by adding all the widgets and the Power BI connector. I test the app. And when Christina signs in, she only sees her numbers without clicking anything. And you could change these visuals to just be viewable. If they're, by default, they're editable. So when they press that card, they will leave the Power BI, the PowerApps itself and go into Power BI. So if you set them to just viewable, they won't leave the Power App. All right, let's get into approvals. Oh, sorry. OK. Approvals with SQL Server. This is a flow that I'm using to take in the form of that invoice. When I got written to the database, now I have a separate process that's checking when a new form ID got inserted into the table, and it's going to send me an approval. So that approval is going to have a yes or no, right? It's going to be either approved or rejected. And then you could customize the email message that goes out and who to send it out to be the approver. So I do the activity to test the form, write the data to the table, and then I get this email. Now, the approval step is not, I didn't introduce that into the store procedure that's doing the insert. I don't recommend that you slow down your insert in order for an approval. So you separate those two workloads. You have an approval flow that does approval when new data gets written to the table, and you have another flow that does the transactional processing. So I get this email, and I can click on approve. It takes me to the website. I can type in a comment, and then I'll get an email back saying, hey, your invoice was approved. Pretty cool stuff. All right, last demo, International Space Station. So this one, I'm going to call the API for the ISS. This is the function for that, and render the map here at the bottom. This is a function for an image that I have at the top, and I will bring this app up in a minute here if we have time. This is the flow for the app. Now I'm calling the open API. There's no authentication required here. This endpoint by NASA is completely free for us to play around with. And it literally calls the satellite on the ISS, and it gives you the telemetry of the satellite for the longitude and latitude, the velocity. So the spaceship is flying tremendously fast because it has to maintain its altitude. Otherwise, gravity will bring the vessel back to Earth. But all of the activity, it kind of looks like this. This is a website for the API. And then you could copy that content into a parsed JSON object so that it helps you build the schema of the response. And then you can use dynamic content for displaying it inside of your app. So here I created a new app that you could see on the left-hand side there. And it has a custom logo. That's the emblem for the spaceship. You call the app, and bam. Right on launch, it shows me exactly where the ship is, and I can customize a pin icon for that object when I render the visual. And then the image here at the top is conditional, that if the ship is over a certain part of the planet where it's daylight, I display a custom image that looks like it's daylight. And if it's nighttime, I display an image where it looks like nighttime. And you could zoom in and out by pressing the buttons here on the top, on the bottom right, on the center right, that just increase or decrease the zoom level by 1 to the Bing API. So that's pretty much all the demos I have to offer. Going to summarize all of that. I know that was quite a bit. Talked about Azure Data Studio, building the schema first, several PowerApps, Microsoft Flow, the data gateway, how we talk to SQL Server, Cortana. We also covered Siri, how to publish and share your apps. Looked at AI Builder and processing forms, role-level security, approvals, quite a bit of content. These are all the resources I have to share with you. Again, like I mentioned, the link to download all of the content is right, the second one there at the top. And then there's a ton of free material that Microsoft offers as well that walks you through a lot of these guides and pricing information. That's always an important topic. This is more resources with regards to some of the customizations. And the webinar listing is quite useful. The PowerApps team has a monthly call if you want to join it. There are great developers that showcase their app in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes on each monthly call. It's on a Wednesday morning that you attend via Teams. So you could click on the webinar listing here, and it'll send you the calendar invite. Like I mentioned, there's a strong community around this. There's a community for Power BI, for PowerApps, and Microsoft Flow. Feel free to register for them, and you'll get notifications as far as when there's releases or if you want to post a question. It will ask you for your business account. Like, you cannot use your Hotmail address or your Gmail address. So this is the URL for the raffle. If you guys want to bring that up and fill out the eval really quick. I'm going to be raffling 2 swag bags from the office that the company provided. It's pretty neat stuff there. And again, it's just going to ask you, rate it 1 through 5. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And then if you want to participate in the raffle, just put in your name. Sorry, did everyone get that? I'll leave it up there for a minute. Are there any questions? Any other questions? Yes, sir?
You said you can make the app publicly available. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I don't have an instruction that I can share with you, but if you send me a message, I'd be happy to provide you with those details. I don't have that information with me right now.
We're talking about using premium connectors. So the user have to have premium connection license, or is it just the developer?
I could hear the question very little, but I believe it's, does the user require premium in order to use the Power App?
Yeah, premium connectors for Flow.
No, I wouldn't say that it does.
Okay.
I may be incorrect, but so far I have the P2 license for everything that I demoed for you, and all of the users don't have that. They may have the trial, and they're able to consume the app. Yeah. Another question?
What are the limitations of the PowerApps? In other words, why would I go back and use Visual Studio?
Well, you're not going to rewrite every CRM app, are you? I have a CRM app that has 200 screens. I may not want to do that inside of Power App. So the Microsoft offering is always like, they're going to try to meet you where you're at. If you have a strong .NET development shot, you're not going to retrain everyone on Power Apps, right? You're going to still continue to support that development team. So Xamarin Forms has a great offering, but you may have to publish that through the App Store. This is a quick solution that I was able to solve a 2-month problem in a matter of 2 hours using Power Apps. So that's the offering there. All right, so let's do the raffle. This is all my contact information as well. I'm pretty sure you guys have that by now. The names are here at the bottom. Whoop. Whoops. Typically when I do this, the list is much shorter. Nope, okay. All right, Google Forms for the win, right? Google Forms for the win. Don't worry, I got a backup plan. Now, this is recorded. If you don't want this in here, please send me an email, and I will delete it. This is the repo. You can see all of the content that's there. Okay. Yulate and Mark. Yulate, if your name is up there, please come up. Yulate and Mark. Congratulations, we got one. Is that, yeah, it's, oh, yeah, okay, there is more than one Mark. Wow, sorry about that. Well, you're the first Mark that stood up. Sorry. We're gonna wing it, guys. Congratulations. Good job. And the name on the top here? Yulate?
That was him.
Oh, okay.
Mark.
All right, is there another Mark in the room? There he is. All right. Thank you.